Alright, Flight Sim community, this is Beetle Beast. I'm back with you again, and we're trying something slightly different. Today, we are in another one of my small airplanes that I own in the sim. This is the Coronado Cessna 170. Apparently, I need to change this in number. I don't know exactly where that one came from, but anyway, this is a cool little airplane. We're on the ground in Guntersville, Alabama, and I decided, like I said, we're trying something different here. It's morning. You know, obviously I was doing a cross-country flight, and I've done that in a variety between the Cessna 172 and the Beechcraft Bonanza V-tail V35 Bonanza. But I wanted to try something, like I said, something a little bit new. So we're currently sitting here in Guntersville, Alabama. We're going to be flying over to Muscle Shoals. I did a little Chat GPT fun to see what is the best VFR Scenic flight per state. And Alabama is the first if you go in alphabetical order, so we're here. Guntersville to Muscle Shoals is supposed to be incredibly pretty. So we got scattered clouds. It's morning time, about 7:30 in the morning. We're obviously in VR, and we're going to take off out of Guntersville. We're going to head up eventually to the north. Kind of overfly Huntsville. We'll fly down the highway a little bit, see if we can catch the Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, which should be off our left side of the southern side of the highway. Go down to the Tennessee River, fly northwest out of the Tennessee River. There are two dams, a couple of lakes that we should pass. They're really just kind of dammed up rivers, but they said the lakes are pretty, and we'll go that way, and then eventually turn south to head into Muscle Shoals, which will just be just south of the lake. Anyway, that's all. We're going to give this a go. Just thought I would kind of let you know what we're looking at before we get moving. Make sure those brakes are off. Our flaps are set. This one does not have propeller controls, obviously. We should be pretty close to sea level, so I'm going to go ahead and leave the mixture almost in. You know what, actually, let's hold the brakes. Let's run this engine up a little bit. I don't fly this one quite as often. Cylinder head temp's going to be a little bit slow. We probably don't have exhaust gas temperature in here, so I'm going to look for RPM increase. Saw a decrease, so somewhere right around there appears to be max RPM. I think we're pretty well set. Brakes coming off, rolling, and increasing our power. So we're leaving off of 2.6 down here in Guntersville. Airplane's flying. We're going to end up eventually turning up to the north, but I'm going to go ahead and do this as a left traffic pattern. Alright, flaps coming up. But it's a small airport. What's kind of cool about Guntersville that I saw, just over here to the north, they have a listed water runway there for seaplane operations, and I would literally consider the fact we're going to be flying over a bunch of lakes and rivers, following the Tennessee River up into the lake that's just to the northwest of here. I had initially thought maybe I'd go ahead and do a seaplane out of here to just land on the water, but I figured, nah, we'll go ahead and we'll pick something else. So the 172, or sorry, the Cessna 170 is an old favorite of mine. I enjoy it quite a bit. And yeah, I thought this, I mean, that's pretty. So we're going to try this out for every state. I mean, Alabama's first, obviously, like I said. Preferably after that, I'm going to do Alaska. But then Arizona, Arkansas. And my kids laugh at me. I can name all 50 states in order. It's all because of a silly song we learned probably in about 6th grade. And I can literally sit here and alphabetically sing all of our states. So anyway, that's what the plan is. I don't remember what the actual course was out of here, but we are going to fly up, like I said, to the northwest. If I really wanted to, we could actually just follow the river as it comes out of here. It's going to take us over the Huntsville Military Airport that's right there. I think it's KHUA. Like I said, once again, I'm in VR right now. I looked it up earlier when I was trying to see exactly where I was going to plan the route, because I wanted to make sure we saw everything. The Rocket Center is off of the highway. The Huntsville Airport that I was talking about earlier is, like I said, should be just up here straight to the northwest. This is very hilly. It's kind of interesting. I'm almost certain I've landed at Huntsville before. I know I fly over it all the time. We use the VOR that's there on a regular basis when we're flying south, but we're at 40,000 feet, so that doesn't exactly help. But no, this is it's more hilly than I think I would have, than I was expecting it to be. And yeah, with the sunrise coming up behind us, there it is. Yeah, that's rather pretty. So like I said, we're going to try this out. We're going to see how well Chat GPT does flight planning for human consumption. You know, I literally put in a prompt of, I would like to see a pretty scenic, actually I think I used the word scenic, a scenic flight. Give me the most scenic flight in Alabama, and this is what came up. Now, previously I was doing some searching, and I was just kind of playing. I had listened to a podcast recently where they were talking about Chat GPT, and I was wondering, you know, what were some of the, you know, they were talking about it with applications for tech, and I was kind of thinking to myself, I wonder what applications could apply to aviation. And obviously the first thing I think of that I do on a regular basis is flight planning. You know, is it possible to do flight planning via Chat GPT? And it is. You can have it spit out an IFR flight plan that you can then review. It doesn't go into the same depth that a pilot will. You know, it's not looking at weather, although you could obviously prompt it for that. It's not going to necessarily look by itself at the best flight level to be flying at, or even if you're doing VFR or IFR down low, it's not going to look at preferred altitudes, but it will work through some prompts. And it uses, of course, data that's out there on the web regarding performance numbers for different aircraft, cruising altitudes, fuel burns, and it will look at a lot of stuff. It can plan you for fuel stops, but every single thing that it does should be looked at from a pilot's perspective, of course, is as a tool. Such as in this case, you know, we're looking at this is purely, you know, as a human, what we consider to be scenic may not be the same thing that a computer thinks of as being scenic. But I mean, truthfully, when I think of Alabama and I start looking at this isn't bad. This isn't bad at all. So if you happen to be from Alabama or have flown around this area, you know, shoot it up in the comments. Let me know what your favorite location is to fly VFR. Also, by the way, when I initially put this in, and this could tell you something that's funky about ChatGPT, I asked for the most scenic flight, like I said, in Alabama, in the state. It had an infinite number of choices, any airport it could choose, right? But it chose Huntsville. And then it talked about the Space and Rocket Center, where you can see a Saturn V rocket that's sitting on the ramp. I haven't actually been there to the one in Huntsville. I have gone to the Kennedy Space Center near Orlando, Titusville, Florida, I think is where it's actually at. So I've done the tour there. It's pretty cool. I actually really enjoyed it. Got to fly the little space shuttle simulator and do the landing like a dork, like every other dork who goes down there. And you know, that was a lot of fun. I really loved it. I really enjoyed it. It let me nerd out quite a bit. But what I can say, you know, and the tour, of course, is amazing too. And knowing that the launches were occurring from that location is historic. And then, of course, at the time, you're seeing SpaceX, who's currently launching rockets from that location and then recovering them either there or offshore, depending on the mission. It was pretty neat. But yeah, I've never actually been to the one here, the Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville. But what I noticed, as I was trying to say, when you start looking at the the plan, it says you can leave out of Huntsville International Airport, fly to the west, you'll fly over downtown. Well, Huntsville International Airport, for anyone that knows, is on the western side of Huntsville. It's already on the southwest of town, and it's actually southwest of the Space and Rocket Center. And it mentioned you'll have a chance to see the Space and Rocket Center. So if I just followed it blindly, it would have had us take off out of Huntsville, turn towards the Tennessee River, which is off to the west, and then immediately fly up the river while mentioning catching a glimpse of the Saturn V rocket, even though there's no chance to see the Saturn V rocket because it is further to your right. Basically, after you take off out of Huntsville, it would have been up the road. So I would have been disappointed. But luckily, I decided to take a look inside of the map and say, hey, where exactly is the Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama? And I found it, and it's near the interstate. And at the exact same time, it is near the airport, but just to the northeast. And I didn't want to take off and fly northeast, and it recommended that area, Guntersville, where we were leaving from, as another incredibly scenic area, and recommended kind of flying over that spot. So, like I said, we're just going to keep kind of heading up here towards the northeast, or sorry, towards the northwest, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see kind of what we come up with. I've got more RPM in you than that. Come on. I'm not doing the engine maintenance on this thing. Find my soda. Finding a soda in VR, pain in the butt. Can't see where it is. It's on your desk somewhere. Luckily, I have enough in the can that it's not a big deal. It's Diet Coke, by the way. It's not the regular stuff. I'm sure someone will say, oh, that's not good either. I do like Coke Zero. For anybody that we'll also probably find out that that's also equally as bad for you as Diet Coke. Looks like this would be a great motorcycling roads, though. It's really pretty. So yeah, I've actually never done a review of the Coronado 170. Let's take a peek outside. I was looking for something that was a high wing, unlike the Bonanza that I often fly. But this one's actually, it's pretty well modeled. You know, it's fun to fly. I like the fact that it's a tail wheel. Obviously, it adds something a little bit different to the flying experience versus going out and just flying in a standard tricycle gear airplane. But it's modeled well. It looks like a Skyhawk, obviously, because it is a Cessna 170, not a 172. The interior, I actually quite enjoy. And I think mainly it's because of its lack of instrumentation. As you guys kind of know, I've mentioned that before on a few other aircraft. This one here is set up in a way that most of it makes sense. You do still have, obviously, the GPS. You know what, I probably should press the other. Oh no, it worked. You do have a GPS here, but it can be hidden. Let's see, like that. And then the panel is gone. It's a very basic GPS. Let's see if I bring up the map. It'll probably say that we're off our course. Yep, see? Oh, we're not terribly far off. We're actually a little bit further north than I thought we would have been. But you do have the ability to see stuff, and that's kind of cool. In case you're, you know, purely and completely lost. Let's see if I can find us again. There we are. But yeah, you know, it works out pretty well. Eventually we are going to hit town up here, so it doesn't really make much of a difference. But yeah, one of the things that I do like about this is, once again, without having the GPS there, if you turn it off, or if you're on that main home screen, there's really nothing to see. You're stuck looking at instruments, steam gauges, that are not, of course, if you can tell, they're not in the standard six-pack. You've got the airspeed, attitude, and altimeter are there, kind of where they're supposed to be. Turn coordinator down here to the bottom left, which I don't think you guys can see my cursor when I have it on the screen, but having it over here on the left-hand side under the bottom, that is also standard, of course. Your VSI should be somewhere down here, and as you can tell, there is no directional gyro. There's definitely no HSI. So when you're flying it, you don't have the ability to kind of look out and go, hey, what's your heading? You're dealing with a whiskey compass right there, which says, 300 degrees approximately, about 295 right now. And then, of course, you've got a TAC, amp meter over there, some oil pressure, vacuum, carburetor temp, which I should actually put I don't have any item listed for carb heat. I should probably add one of those if I fly this airplane a little bit more regularly. I've never flown it with my current setup. But like I said, I jump in it quite a bit. It's kind of funny, as I've read through other people who are flying these aircraft in Microsoft Flight Sim, there's a variety of folks that fly this game. And of course, I spent, my youth, when I was young, the only thing I wanted to fly were military aircraft. I wanted to fly things that had missiles on them so I could blow up MiGs. That was my only hope and goal in the world. My eyesight didn't cooperate with me on that, so I wasn't able to go out there and kill MiGs, which is what I, like I said, really wanted to do. So commercial aviation was just kind of my runner-up, and I learned how to fly during college, and got my pilot certificates, all of them, all the way through my CFI, and started instructing in Skyhawks. But in a way, it was kind of the consolation prize, right? Because you're going off to the airlines, and that's amazing, and it was fun, and it was incredibly fun. But it wasn't what my immediate original goal was. And I'm just going to do an aside real quick. I am happy that we started over in Guntersville. I'm assuming that's a fire station tower that's funkily sitting up on top of that mountain. But yeah, because if you look on this side of town, it's significantly more plain. So yeah, it's good to have started over where we did, and then getting to see all the cool terrain as we flew across. Okay, so that's it. But yeah, the majority of time that I fly inside of Microsoft Flight Simulator is actually in small aircraft. And I know I've mentioned before, I have a Cessna 172 that is a buddy's aircraft that I do get to fly and stay current on, and I enjoy flying a small airplane. I still enjoy taking my kids up and going flying with them, going places, and getting the $100 hamburger. This is significantly cheaper to fly in the sim, but no, it's still a lot of fun to fly small aircraft. But my first job was flying an airliner. Did that for a few years, eventually started flying business jets, have done that now for a bunch of years, a little more than a decade, I guess. And I love flying business jets around. But if you get me in the sim, the first thing I'm going to jump in and probably do, if they don't have an aircraft that I've flown, as in a business jet or an airliner, if you don't have one of those that I've already flown and I want to see just how real it is or how accurate it is, yeah, my next step's going to be to jump in a light single, most likely, and go zipping around just as we're doing. Not sure what this is. This might be part of the military base. The stuff to the left there looks kind of like a military range. But this building is significantly taller than what I would expect for any type of military operations. Ah, there we go. That looks about right. I'm going to turn a little bit further north because clearly that right there is a military base. And I want to hit the highway somewhere north of that. And then we're going to follow the highway towards the southwest and then intercept the river that's over that way. So yeah, this will work out. This should work out pretty well. Got a helipad down there. Water tower. done on the tower, or on the beacon light. Obviously military beacon, you got a green, and then we're gonna have a double flash white, indicating a military airfield. You know, one of the cool things, of course, about the sim, you get that the soil color, you know, Alabama soil being that red clay. Kind of neat to see that from the air here. Interesting that they have the X on that taxiway near the runway here at the alert end. All right, now here comes the real question. Is this the highway directly north of the base that I was following out? I do believe so, but I'm not, the direction's correct. We're gonna go on the north side of the highway and follow it down. I think that's the one I want to follow, because Huntsville International should be over there to the left. Should be, if we're not lost. But I want to stay on the north side so I can put the Space Center out my left window. You know, if I actually had a chart up, this would probably work easier, but that's okay. I do believe this is my turn, because I was kind of adjusting my route. Initially, it didn't say that I had to really turn directly in this direction. I could have just flown almost over the airport, but to kind of get a straight line straight out to the river there, this was where I needed to be, so that's kind of where I adjusted. Yeah, and there's Huntsville International, so I would have assumed it should have been right here. Maybe right up there. There's something big sticking up out of the ground. Let's descend down a little bit and take a peek. Keep it in the green arc so we don't need the carb heat. Do seem to be having a little bit of issues with some stuttering inside of my headset right now. Not really sure why that's going on. It might have just been, it wasn't a pixelation, but it might have just been a couple items lining up. This is international right here. Let's turn around over here and take a quick peek, and then we'll fly back off to the west. It's like another little, I was gonna say another airport, but I don't think it is. Got a helipad there. Looks like a little racetrack. See, I'm not seeing anything there. We'll have to take another look. Maybe it was further inland, further north than I originally thought. I know there were some hotels around it. I saw those on my search. I see a few hotels up here to the north of the airport. And to the south. That looks about the area, but yeah, I don't see anything that resembles any type of rockets. It could also be the age of the sim. They've relocated the facility since the last imagery was taken. But yeah, it should have been there. All right, moving on. Let's take ourselves towards a river. Little Huntsville International. Yep. Anybody trying to land there? I see nothing. I see no one. Okay, so despite going out of our way to attempt to see that, that part was kind of a bust. First part of the flight, definitely Scenic. Second part, meh. And in fact, just to save a little time, I see the river that I'm heading towards. I'm just going to go a little bit towards the west in an attempt to just intercept it a little bit further up so we're not backtracking for the sake of backtracking. By the way, if you ever want to be able to tell that you're old and boring at this point in your life, this is a Saturday night. And after some soccer with the kids, this is how I relax. And it's still pretty cool. Yeah, so it looks like I see a bridge up there straight ahead. It looked like there was one when I was kind of checking out imagery earlier. It mentioned that there were 2 dams that were going to overfly here on the river. I wasn't able to find the southernmost dam. I'm kind of wondering if that's it there. The one up further to the north should be a little easier to see. I could even see the water outlets and the spillways from the overhead imagery, the satellite imagery. So I have a feeling the one further north will be nice and easy. The one to the southern end, though, of the Tennessee River might be a little more difficult to see. Like I said, I'm kind of wondering, though, if it's actually that and has a road going across it, and if the spillway was simply a little bit more obscured in the photo. So yeah, a little bit more about that Serenado C-170, the Cessna 170 here. The radio avionics stack is that old school Bendix King here, but I think that this one feels in place in the airplane. The transponder that's in here is a little bit older than the one. I'll take it back. No, it's a little newer than the one that you see in the V-35 Bonanza. And I think this is more. It matches the rest of the Bendix King avionics that are in here, which that's part of the thing I like. Obviously, you can tell that this was designed in an era before there was a lot of human factor study regarding the shape and size of knobs and buttons. The Bonanza kind of suffers from that same thing. It's not a big deal, obviously, in a simulator, but if you were flying around in an airplane, you'd want each of these kind of buttons over here to all have their own individual shape, texture, making it significantly easier for a pilot to discern what they're touching by feel versus having to see it and then be able to read the label that says carburetor heat pull, cabin heat pull, cabin air pull, closed. You know, it's each one of those things is something extra that you normally don't want the pilot to have to search for. You know, the most impressive thing, obviously, is this massive throttle knob. Thing's gigantic. And you can tell that there's obviously differences of the size of the knobs, most likely based on the importance. But the fact that the mixture lean is identical to the cabin air pull closed. So in other words, if you start realizing that you're a little cold in the airplane and want to close the cabin air, and you reach up and grab this and pull it, you also run a risk of killing your engine. So that's what you try to avoid when it comes to aircraft design. There's a reason that things like that don't normally happen anymore. Yeah, so this is the lake. Looks pretty. Got some buildings, a little town off here to the left. I think it might be Decatur. just from what I had read earlier. We're going to descend down. Got smooth air. Pull the power back a little bit again. And let's go surfing. We're just going to kind of cruise up over the lake here. We'll keep the shore off to our left. Fly to the northwest here. And yeah, just kind of hang out. So according to them, the lake has numerous islands. I mean, obviously we can see a couple right here. We're gonna fly. Oh, see, and this is kind of what I was wondering. You know, when you're dealing with Microsoft Flight Simulator, you have issues specifically with the water. See the big line right there? Any type of terrain issues that show up that involve the water typically have this a funky height. As they try to mesh all the different layers together, you have this funky height algorithm that kind of gets messed up. Let's fly between these. And the end result is you have water at one height in one direction and then a slightly different height in the other direction. Looks like that's a barge going down the river lane. And what that results in are you know, water that doesn't look right. And that was kind of one of my I don't want to say worries or concerns, but I was curious to see if the elevation data was accurate along the water here. Condos don't look terrible, but yeah. All right, we've seen water, we know what that looks like. Power's all the way in. So obviously what we just passed over there was not a dam. It definitely is not going to hold up any water to create this lake that we're kind of looking at right now. I actually expected that to be more residential and commercial. It's just a refinery. A lot of fake coal over there, simulated coal. Alright, so just to kind of take a peek and see where we're at, hit the button. That doesn't seem quite right. There we are. We're right on our line. Got a ways to go. But yeah, that's what I don't quite enjoy about the sim, is these funky little lines that show up. And it's one of the things that I'm really hoping they're able to fix in 2024. If you look at it, you know, and that's the thing. I sit here every time I'm complaining about something in the sim, I think of what the actual scale of the sim is. Nothing like this had ever been done before that I'm aware of. I think of any of the previous iterations, yes, you could fly anywhere you wanted to in the world, but when they came up with this game, their idea and what they advertised was you will be able to fly VFR anywhere in the world. And they're right. You can. You can take this airplane, take off from any location, pull out a sectional chart, and fly it by visual flight rules in reference to the terrain anywhere. Things like right below us here, you see the power lines that are showing up, and obviously they look better if you're on the PC with the screen, or on an Xbox, I guess, playing it that way. But it all looks really, really good, and crossing power lines is definitely a VFR waypoint that an old school guy like me used when trying to decipher where you were in space. And I say an old school guy like me because I know that if I was doing this flight and I had an iPad in front of me doing it on ForeFlight, similar to putting a straight line between 2 points, I might use a point, such as when I'm going to cross those power lines, but I wouldn't guarantee it. And I know that flight planning is a very different game for people that are of the age where they started flying after introduction of iPads and after introduction of ForeFlight. Whereas, when I started, it was you with a slide rule on your leg, staring out the window, looking for different waypoints that you had marked. God hope that you marked good waypoints you can actually find from the air and know where they're at, with some level of authority so that you can say, yep, I know where I'm at, because if you missed that set of power lines, in case you didn't realize it, there's another set right up here. And trust me, that will really mess up your time calculations as you sit there with your stopwatch looking at it, trying to say, yep, we're going this fast over the ground. And then your flight instructor is immediately going to say, yeah, so what's the wind then? So then you're stuck looking at your course, your angle, the time that it took you to get from point A to point B, the speed that's calculated, the speed you're actually going based off your true airspeed, and then coming up with what the winds were and adjusting it on a little slide. I love my flight instructors. They were great. And hopefully I gave the same to my students when that time came. But I do think that type of stuff does make you a good pilot, understanding where you are in space and time and how far it is that you have to go before you get to where you're going. But yeah, I'd say if I was sitting out here in the real airplane, this isn't bad. It's pretty out here. Wag the tail for you. I love soda. I'll never sleep tonight now. It's kind of cool. There's some pixelation going on down here on the field, and while I look at it and go, oh, that's the sim kind of acting funny, it's kind of neat because I know that as a kid, you used to drive by fields in the car on road trips, and you almost got this funky looking, I won't say pixelation, but it was the lines kind of playing with you in the field as you went by. And that was the vibe I was kind of getting from that field, despite the fact that it was, obviously an artifact from the simulator and the headset. We'll just keep straight right through here. I do see lights over there to our left. They're pretty far away. They're out there on the horizon. Definitely another airport. The fact that I can see the lights this far away is kind of insane, but especially during the daytime. But it's definitely an airport, so that could be where we're ending up eventually. And, you know, kind of looking at this, I see this bridge going across the water here. And obviously it's making a lake up there. There is a lake that's to the north here. I'm kind of wondering, maybe, is it possible that this could be a dam and not just a bridge? Let's go find out. I'm guessing it's just a land bridge, but... Huh. There's a tree. It could be some type of earthen dam. Yeah, I'm kind of half wondering if that's what they're talking about when they say the dam that was used, because the lake that we were discussing is up here on the northern side. So it's very possible that that was set up to create the lake that we see over here based off from the river. You know, it's kind of interesting to see. I mean, I imagine if I was actually flying down here, I'd be saying, gosh, it's humid and hot and annoying. But, you know, from the view, it reminds me of northern Michigan. It kind of reminds me of, oh gosh, Upper Peninsula a little bit. Maybe, I guess, what, Traverse City, I think, is up that way. And that's kind of the vibe I get. Now, granted, that could be the foliage that Flight Sim chose, although this doesn't look particularly abnormal for the southern U.S. Like I said, there'd definitely a big difference in feel if I was sitting in this airplane without air conditioning going, oh yeah, I don't feel like I'm in Michigan anymore, even in the summer. But that's where the little coves kind of give off, you know, the vibe that I'm getting. Let the airplane just kind of slowly climb up a little bit. You can see those lights a little bit stronger there. Kids and I would have a great time down this lake on some jet skis. They said it was a very popular lake tourist destination, or weekend getaway for the folks who are in Alabama. And I can imagine that most definitely for the folks in Huntsville, this would be phenomenal to have a lake like this that you can go out and kind of play on the weekends. You know, with the kids, with the family. Like I said, the kids would have a great time, hop out on some jet skis and go cruising. They would be having a blast. And I'm sure if somebody really wanted to, little cabins, you know, several homes, I don't know what the prices are, but have a little weekend getaway that's incredibly close to the city of Huntsville. That would be pretty nice. Oh, that dock house is completely underwater. Good luck, boys. Yep, don't want to do that. Oh, it won't let me open that one. Well, that's annoying. I'm not going to try the door. It'll probably break the sim, and I am not doing this a second time. We are continuing. We'll open the door when we land. But yeah, obviously west of Huntsville. Kind of like just the area just to the southeast of Huntsville. Incredibly flat. More or less on under the impression, under the line of what I would expect for most of Alabama. I guess we were in a little bit of Appalachia to the east there, just east of Huntsville. But yeah, this area here, of course, is more what I'm used to. And like I said, I'm almost certain I've been to the Huntsville airport. I'm almost 100% certain on that one. I'm trying to think of what restaurant I ate at when I went there. But I don't think I've actually been to Muscle Shoals. I think the majority of time that the vast majority of time I spent in Alabama has been at Gulf Shores. It's been my general spot. And I went there a bunch, especially flying charter. Can I see my route? Nope, that's not it. I have to press buttons until we find the one that's actually our route of flight. Oh, we don't want that. I mean, that's cool and all, but I don't need that. We've somehow managed to lose it. We don't want that either. Ah, there it is. My route would be down to the south a little bit, so I guess we could start working our way in. I will almost guarantee that what I'm seeing over there, though, is Muscle Shoals. But yeah, I'd say that this has been a fairly enjoyable, pretty flight. Never saw the other dam, though, and I was kind of hoping to catch that. And I would have sworn that my route was going to take me on it, but I'm going to keep kind of over the river here, the lake, up here to the north, and then kind of make sure I turn and follow it here a little bit further to the west and southwest, and maybe we'll catch it up here. Like I said, it seemed like it was pretty easily viewable from the air. Let me look real quick. I don't think I overflew when I was staring at other stuff. Yeah, there's nothing behind us. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking it's up there, close to where the river comes across. So I'm going to go over there and take a peek. So like I said, I will be curious to see what comes up for Alaska, because that's a spot, obviously, that's, by itself gorgeous. By itself it's scenic. So if you type in what is the most scenic flight in Alaska, should have some pretty good results. And I think for that one, I think I've got an idea as to what kind of airplane I'd like to fly up there, because I've got a few airplanes that seem very fitting for Alaska. And kind of just like I said, I think I see what appears to be a dam. We'll drop back down to about 1,000 feet, maybe a little bit less, and then we'll kind of fly down the dam as we kind of push our way to the south and towards the Muscle Shoals Airport. Yeah, we've got a bridge up there, it looks like, and potentially a dam. One of them's one of them's the other. Let's go over that way, take a peek, see if we take the dam tour. Everyone's laughing, I'm sure of it. Kind of wonky that the trees didn't all populate in here, considering the way AI was set up to populate trees. Kind of screwy looking. Should go over to Augusta, Georgia, take a look at the course of the Masters, see if they got the trees correct there. Because I have a feeling that would upset some flight simi people. Yeah, so the item nearest to us here looks like the dam. It's a lot lower than the bridge that's behind it, and the bridge, obviously I can see the pillars on it. There's a bridge behind that one. I can see the pillars on it as well. You've got this earthen wall here with a couple of islands set up. Like I said, I'm almost certain that's the dam. Here we are at 1,500 feet MSL. Let's go ahead and update our barometer. Seems like it's still accurate. There's obviously a bridge there, though. I mean, it could be a train line coming across it. Yeah, it looks like a bridge as well. Meh. We might just be SOL when it comes to actually finding the dam. And everything in me wants to fly underneath it except the fact that the sim half the time doesn't allow it. We got close enough. Let's find out. Oh, there's a massive elevation change on the right. You know what? I do believe this might be the dam. That is definitely the dam. All right, we were right all along. You just can't see it from this side. So that's it. The elevation change gives it away, but that's about it. Also, up here, you can see another problem with Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. Take a look at those cars driving through the water. All right, let's bank off here, head to the south. Get ourselves landing at Muscle Shoals. I think winds are out of the west, so we're going to overfly the airport. They've got a big runway going out to the west. We'll overfly the airport, enter a downwind, and then do that piloting thing and land over here at Muscle Shoals. So yeah, I'm willing to say Chat GPT didn't do a terrible job of coming up with a scenic flight plan for the state of Alabama. It's possible that it could have been a better flight plan, but it wasn't bad. And for a computer picking something for me to do, I'm willing to say I'm pleased. You guys might be bored. Odds are you turned the stupid video off already, but yeah, I'm willing to say that was kind of cool. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to Alaska here. So there's midfield. That should work out beautifully. I think I might land long and pull into the FBO there. At least we're going to say we're going to. That's our plan. Hey, look there. There's a windsock that we can actually see from the air. It's in the wrong spot, but I can see it. So winds are coming out of the west. We're going to land on 30, which is right here. All right. Let's see here. Double click the button. Carb heat. Pulled that on. There we go. Now we got a mode change. I love it. Alright, white arc. First notch of flaps. Like I said, we're going to try to land a little bit long. So I'm going to turn in early. Next notch of flaps. Got 20 degrees. Power's all the way out. That should be 30 degrees of flaps. This thing probably has 40-degree barn doors on it, doesn't it? It does. I love it. Yeah. Look at those big boys hanging down. All right. flaps are up. Let's go ahead and taxi ourselves on down. Make a right-hand turn into that FBO. Yeah, it's kind of nice. I mean, the Cessna 170 here, you know, you obviously have a nose-up attitude, but you're not looking over like you are on, say, a Stearman or a Waco. Even a Cub, at least from the back seat, you know, it's a little bit harder to see over the top of a Cub if you're flying it solo, obviously, from the back as opposed to being in the front seat. This one here is pretty slick. It's pretty nice, pretty easy to follow. That's actually probably the FBO over there, but we're turning to the right because guess what? I'm not taxiing that long. A little slow down, little turn. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed our little flight to Alabama. I do believe that is a self-serve fuel pump up here, so we're going to pull up towards it. And yeah, hopefully you guys can enjoy this one. Come back and see me for our flight to out of Alaska. We're going to play this like we're a wealthy vagabond who simply has money to burn and is out here flying anywhere and everywhere he wants. What in the heck? Wow, I guess this is a first. I've never actually pulled up to the self-service fuel pump properly. Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. I don't actually want to refuel, but I like the fact that you gave me the option to. Thank you, Flight Sim. Yeah, hopefully you guys liked it, and we'll do the next one up in Alaska, and I'll keep on going as long as I keep finding these to be a little bit more interesting than simply flying across the Midwest. Thanks a lot, and happy simming, guys.